In today's broadcast, we will be discussing the practical learning period, PLP, of Level 5 agricultural students on host farms across the country. We will look at the benefits of PLP and will discuss areas that you need to know about before going out on PLP. We have an excellent panel lined up for you this morning to discuss PLP and will endeavour to answer any questions that you may have. Today I am joined in studio by Dr. Anne-Marie Butler, Teagasc Head of Education, who will outline the objectives of PLP. We will go live to host farmer Pat Dillon on his farm in Cuffs Grange, County Kilkenny, where he will be joined by John O'Connor, Kildalton College Placement Officer. I'll be joined in studio by two fellow students, Jack Corkery from Pallaskenry College and Katie Cooney from Ballyhaise College, along with Maeve Freeney, Teagasc National Placement Coordinator. Later on in the programme, Anne-Marie Doherty, PLP Officer at Gertine College, will also join the discussion. Good morning everyone, and thanks for joining us for this webinar today, coming to you live from our Teagasc studio. To start, I'd like to hand you over to Dr. Anne-Marie Butler, Teagasc Head of Education, who is going to give us a short presentation on practical learning periods.
Thank you, Ellen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anne-Marie Butler. I'm Head of Education with Teagasc, and I'm sincerely delighted to welcome you to this, our first ever education webinar, live from our studio here in Oak Park in Carlow. I would like to sincerely welcome all our colleges across the country. We're delighted this morning to be joined by Ballyhaise in Cavan, the Botanic Gardens in Dublin, our friends in Gertine in Tipperary, Mount Bellew in Galway, Pallaskenry in Limerick, all in Kildalton in South Kilkenny and Clonakilty in County Cork. You're all very welcome. Today is an opportunity for you, our learners, to learn more about our practical learning period. We're delighted to have here in studio your fellow colleagues and students. We'll also go live to a host farm, and it's an opportunity for you to learn all about placement and how important a successful placement is for you. There are many objectives to practical learning period. Fundamentally, it's an opportunity for you to go to a farm that you've previously not been on and to apply the skills that you are learning in your college. You get the opportunity to work with experienced farmers and to experience what life is like on their farm. It gives you an opportunity to apply all the knowledge and skills in a real work situation. Health and safety is paramount, and as we all know, agriculture is a dangerous place to work. So it's very important to always take care, exercise caution, and to make complete awareness for the challenges that could be around or the dangers. Placement allows you to work independently. It also allows you to form close relationships with the host farmer and family and to learn new skills. And very importantly, it's a new life experience. For many, it may be quite daunting, but I would encourage you to please take your time, surround yourselves with those who can assist you, and to enjoy the experience. Today is about helping you to set yourself up for success. I would encourage you to listen to the detail. Please do engage with us on the Q&A and ask some questions. Take the time to discuss placement with your parents and guardians and friends. If you have concerns, please don't be afraid to discuss them. But I would encourage you to look on this time as a positive experience. It's a great experience. For many, you will go to new parts of the county, further outside, or for some in Level 6, heading abroad for the first time. I ask you to please work with your placement officer and college staff. They are there to support you and guide you, so please take the time to work with them. I thank you sincerely for joining us today. I wish you the very best of luck in placement and in your continued studies, and I thank you for choosing to work with Teagasc. Thanks, Ellen.
Thanks for that, Anne-Marie. Can I ask you to join me over here to discuss your presentation? And as you're doing that, I will take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Ellen Doherty and I'm a level 6 dairy student in Kildalton College. We're dairy farming at home in South Kilkenny. I completed level 5 placement with 2 different farmers, Joe Malone and John Power, and I got first-hand experience of the benefits of placement on both farms. Now Anne-Marie, thank you for joining me. Why is the practical learning period so important for students?
Yeah, placement is really important, Ellen. For the majority of students, it'll be the first time that they'll get to apply the skills and experience that they've learned in their college on farm. For many, they may not have been on other farms. For those who are not from a farming background, it's their first experience. So it's a great opportunity to develop new skills, practice your skills, and develop new friendships. I think that's a very important part of it.
Yeah. And when will our level 5 students commence placement this year?
Yeah, so our level 5s will commence placement in March of next year. They'll spend 8 weeks on farm. And today represents, I suppose, the start of that process in terms of engagement with their placement officer, getting to know where they'll go to, and having important conversations with the host.
And will students receive credits, and how many, for completing the practical learning period?
Yeah, so the practical learning period is a very important part of placement. So for all our students, it's 120 credits to receive your green cert or complete your studies. PLP is 15 credits, so it's a significant proportion of that. And hopefully it'll be a very positive experience. We have lots of students who, go back to their host farmers and attend weddings and family events. So it's very important. But I would like to thank you, Ellen, for hosting this morning. As a level 6 student, you've been on placement, and also we'll be joined later by Katie and Jack. And I'd like to thank you because you're speaking to all your fellow students, so that's very powerful. So thank you.
Thanks. Now, this webinar is to answer all your questions on PLP, so please submit your questions through your college teacher and I'll ask them on your behalf. We'll now go over to Pat Dillon and John O'Connor live on Pat's farm in Cuffs Grange. Before that, however, we visited Pat in the last few weeks, and here is a short video.
My name is Pat Dillon. I'm living in Cuffs Grange in County Kilkenny. I've been a horse farmer for about 7 years now. I'm married to Una and we have 3 sons ranging in ages from 14 down to 10. The farming is a big part of their lives. There's a little bit 100 acres here on the milking platform with another 50 on outside blocks. I did placement myself once upon a time up in Tipperary and I got an awful lot out of that, and I suppose I learnt a lot from that farm, and hopefully I'm putting a lot of his practices in place here on my farm. The quality I most look for in a student is honesty. Everything works from there. It's easy. I don't expect a student to have come here fully trained or anything. If they can't drive a tractor, I expect them to be able to tell me they can't drive a tractor. Look, we're all in it together. Once we have honesty, it's easy. Everything works perfect from there. Big aspect of the farm is grass. Cows go out in springtime. Most days they're on grass, and a big part of that with the student is grass measuring, setting up fences on top of the other silage feeding jobs, cleaning jobs. As part of the whole thing, it's about building up a relationship and having a relationship with my family. There's also the social side of things. They have their meals up with us up in the house, breakfast, dinner every day. We'd be hoping it ends up being a home away from home.
We're now going live to the farm with John and Pat. Good morning, lads. How are you this morning?
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. What's the weather like over in Cuffs Grange?
For the last 3 weeks of constant rain. Today is a beautiful day. As you can see, the cows are grazing here. Our happy cows are here grazing here behind us. Pat, I have a question for you. How long have you been a horse farmer?
I've been a horse farmer for 7 years now, John.
Why did you decide to be a horse farmer, Pat?
I suppose there's a couple of aspects to that. Many moons ago, I did my own placement up in Tipperary. I was a farmer and his family. Look, number one, he was an excellent farmer. Hopefully I'm putting some of his practices. Number two, I got on great with the farmer, with his wife, with his children. We had a great relationship. And the other aspect, look, I love every student that comes into the place. I get something out of it. Like kind of every student that comes in, I learn something. There's different ways of doing things. You get something out of every student. Learn something new every day. That kind of way.
And what would you expect from a student when you start this placement here next spring?
Look, I don't have massive expectation, but look, the one big expectation I'd have is honesty. Like everything works from honesty of effort, honesty of timekeeping. Look, letting me know what the student can't do. It's easy from there. I don't expect a student to be the finished article. If a student can't drive a tractor, I don't mind just to let me know.
There's a lot of students looking at this webinar today. What advice would you give a student to prepare for placement for next spring?
Look, I suppose the one thing I would see as very important is the interview before the placement. Just you're going to that sets out more or less the terms and conditions of your placement. Also, you let the farmer know what you want out of the placement, what skills you want to improve on, and what you're weak at.
Thank you, Pat. Hand you back
Thank
to Ellen
you.
there.
Thanks, John and Pat. I have a few more questions there, so I'll start with you, Pat. What would your ideal day of having a student on PLP consist of?
I suppose a typical day, look, it starts with milking in the morning. You feed calves, try and get the cows out to grass. After that, then it's breakfast. Look, student has the meals up at the house. At breakfast time, we discuss what jobs we'll do for the day. After that, then you have silage feeding, cubicle cleaning. There's could be fencing, grass management, grass measurement. It could be vary, and then after we'd have usually dinner up at the house. Then not too long after that, you're into the evening jobs, and usually the student is gone by 6 o'clock every day.
Perfect.
Well gone.
And John, as placement officer, how do you work with the students in preparation for placement?
There's a lot of preparation for placement, and if you prepare, it works out very well. When the students come in late August or early September, we meet all the students as a group. I spend a full class talking to them about placement, and then I get them to fill up a placement request form. And then on the placement request form, I know what age they are, what type of farm they're looking for, and what type of farm they're coming from. Then during the year, then we have them in practicals, we have them in specials and farms, and we see what their strong points and what their weak points are. We also do a good bit of training on safety, like quad training, men and handling, and all the different other training to be done before we set them up on placement. At the moment, we have all the level 6s ready for placement. Last week was our deadline for getting the level 6s and IT students set up for placement, so they will get an email the next week. So now we're meeting the level 5s at the moment individually, and have a chat with them. Some of them can they drive to the farm, have the transport to the farm, or would they prepare to go away from home? Because sometimes we mightn't have the farm they're in need of, like a tillage student, or maybe a sheep student, or maybe even a dairy student. We mightn't have a farm inside of 15 or 20 kilometres, and might have to go a bit further. So we have a chat with them as well. So that's really the main thing. And also then, in January and February, we'll be talking to them. Then they get emails late January what farm they go to. And February then we'll hand out a pack with the dairies. We'll talk about the tax situation, talk about the wages, talk about the food arrangements, and talk about the interview. And we'll get them ready for the interview, as I think the interview is very, very important.
Now, you already briefly touched on the interview. I found that interview very beneficial. How important is this interview, both for the host farmer and for you, John, as placement officer?
The interview is vital because the student goes meet the farmer 3 to 4 weeks before he starts placement. He or she starts placement, and they will set out. They will see the farm, meet the family. The one thing I find as placement officer for many years, most of these students will make friends for life on placement, either through family or through neighbours. And when they meet the family, they see the farm and they find out what time they start now, what time they finish now, what's the wages, what's the week, what do they want to learn in placement. Some students will have some very good skills, and some students might be skills they might be as good at. So they'll ask the farmer, they will tell them that. So basically, the interview is absolutely vital. Do you agree with that, Pat?
Well, look, I totally agree, and look, to touch on the same points, you're setting out the terms and conditions, more or less, of the placement. Starting time, finishing time. Look, they get to meet my family. They get to see the farm, I suppose, the equipment, the parlour, they see the cows, all those little things. Also, it's the time to let me know what they're strong at, what they're weak at. It's when a student starts the placement, it's springtime, you're busy, you don't want to be sorting out those issues in the middle of your employment, that kind of a thing.
Perfect. Thanks very much for both of you for joining us, and thank you, John. Pat's going to stay with us for any questions later on, so send them in and we'll have a Q&A later on. Now, I'm joined here in studio by Katie Cooney, Jack Corkery and Maeve Freeney. So, Katie, you're a dry stock student and you were on placement last year. So just tell me a little bit about yourself and your experience on level 5 placement.
So I'm Katie Cooney and I'm from Cavan, and at home we're farming and we're farming suckler cows at home. So I'm in level 6 in dry stock in Ballyhaise. I suppose the last year in placement I was with two different farmers. I was with Gerard O'Reilly and I was with Charlie Rowe. I really enjoyed placement. It was something different, like instead of being in college from 9 to 5 every day, you're out on the farm, you're getting your hands-on experience, and it's a really good opportunity for every student to make friends for life, as the boys are saying there.
Perfect. And Jack, a fellow dairy student, can you tell me a little bit yourself and how you got on your placement last year?
My name is Jack Corkery. I'm a level 6 dairy student in Pallaskinray. I'm from Knockadere. I wouldn't really be from a farming background, so going on the placement really opened up my eyes and to see what sort of what way dairy farming was in Ireland. The place I went on placement was, they were putting up a 50-point rotary at the time, and it was very interesting to see how the cows got trained to it and how to use a rotary milking parlour. Yeah.
And Maeve, as National Placement Coordinator, can you outline what students need to do to successfully complete their practical learning period?
Well, there's a number of areas. First of all, so when you're filling out your placement request form, to put as much detail and be honest when you're filling it out. And that's then helpful for the placement officers when they're matching the student to the host farmer. Secondly, to listen to the placement officer when they're going through all the different areas of placement, and they will be spoken to, both as groups and individually, and just make sure they're present for those talks and to listen carefully. And again, maybe echoing what John and Pat have said, probably the key thing is that host farmer meeting with the host farmer. You get a sense of who the farmer is and where you're going, and I suppose ironing out all the little bits, the starting time, the finishing time, are you getting meals, are you not, your allowance, do you have to work extra hours, and if you are, what you're going to get paid for it, and so on. So I suppose when you start placement, then there are no surprises for either you or the host farmer. So I suppose communication and honesty really is the key to a successful placement, and all the placement officers would say, that meeting with the farmer, and the form that's filled out, the better it's filled out, those placements rarely have trouble or break down, so that's probably the most important one.
And Katie, could you give us some advice on preparing for placement and going out on farm?
I suppose the best bit of advice is to you're only there for the 8 weeks in level 5. It's 8 weeks of your life, it's not the rest of your life. The most key thing I found is building up a good relationship with your host farmer, and even now I'd still talk to my host farmer and get any advice on anything you want, and make sure that fill out your diary as you go on, because when the weeks go on you forget what you did last week. I forget what I did yesterday.
And Jack, do you have any more advice to add to that, or anything of what not to do when you're on placement?
Well, a piece of advice would be just to not be afraid to ask questions. The host farmer was in your position once upon a time. He's no bother helping you out with anything.
Yeah.
They will try their best to help you out with everything. Piece of advice not to do is not to fill in your diary last minute as well, I'd say.
Have it done, don't wait until you get your visit.
Yeah.
And Maeve, what happens if a placement breaks down for any reason at all?
Well, I suppose from the student's point of view, probably the thing to do is to contact the placement officer, just to flag it with them that maybe that you're not happy and there are a few issues, and they'll talk it over with you. But you'd want to have your reasons as to why you feel the placement isn't good, or it can't continue. So you would be expected to finish out that week. So if you rang your placement officer on a Wednesday to say, look, I can't work here anymore for whatever reason, you would be asked to finish that week. So it gives the placement officer time to have a new location sorted for you for the following Monday, all going well. So I suppose just to make your placement officer aware as quickly as possible that there might be problems.
Perfect. Thank you for your insight into placement. And just a reminder that there's still time to get questions in for the Q&A later on. Now, we have another short video from a host farmer and a student from Clonakilty, where you'll get both the host farmer and student perspective of placement.
My name is Stephen O'Hee. I'm from Lissavard, West Cork. We're currently a contract heifer rearing at home, and we're hoping to go into dairy farming in the future. I'm currently doing my level 6 in an advanced certificate in agriculture, and I'm specialising in dairy herd management. I chose Clonakilty Agricultural College because it's close to home, and I knew multiple people who had been through the course and said it was a good job. Throughout our first year in the college, the level 5 course, it was very much 50-50 between practical and theory. I very much enjoyed the practical side of things. Some of my favourite parts of the course have been our learning about machinery and maintenance, and a lot of the practical stuff like animal handling and husbandry. The business farm management part of the course has helped me myself in preparing our own farm at home for converting to dairy. Throughout the course I've learned more about grass measuring, and it's something I plan to continue doing once I'm done the course at home. I've learned a lot about breeding and genetics, the use of EBI, which I plan to also use at home. Placement's going very well. It is a very educational experience. I'm learning a lot from the farmer, showing me a lot of stuff firsthand. I personally think the benefit of going out in placement is you get to experience what it's like to work on a farm, whether it be a large scale dairy herd or a beef farm. You get the experience and learn new things and see would that suit you in your situation as well.
My name is Dennis Ryan, and I'm from Kilburton here in West Cork, the real capital of Ireland. We're dairy farmers here. We've 65 acres here around the house, and we're making 120 pedigree Holstein cows. I suppose, look, the Ag College gave me a great foundation in agriculture, and then going to a horse farmer, then you're hands-on. You learn very fast. I decided to be a horse farmer, I suppose, because I felt I learned an awful lot myself, and I wanted to give back what I had learned. I suppose I'm in agriculture for the last 20 years, and I've spoken to a lot of people in those 20 years, and I'd like to give back that information to the young kids coming up. It's great that Stephen has come to me. He's had a year already in Clonakilty, and they have given him a great foundation in dairying. And it's credit to the Clonakilty Agricultural College that they've done such a good job on these students. That it's great to have a student come here that knows exactly what to do. You don't have to show them the ropes. A few years ago, I did that course, the Clonakilty Dairy course in Clonakilty Ag College, and it was a great course to do. Gave me a great foundation in dairying, is what I'm specialising in.
Now, it's great to see that you don't have to be from a farming background, or like Jack, from much of a farming background, to work on a farm during placement. Placement gives a great opportunity for students to learn about new and different enterprises. We're now joined by Anne-Marie Doherty, who is Placement Officer in Garteen College. Welcome, Anne-Marie. It's great to have you with us here this morning. As Placement Officer in Garteen, can you explain to the students how the college keeps in touch and supports the students throughout placement?
So initially at the start of placement, a member of staff will be allocated a number of students that they're going to look after during placement. They'll also I'll be in contact regularly with them as well while they're on placement. They'll get a phone call from me on several occasions, and that person that's been assigned to them will come and visit them while they're on placement as well. And that visit allows them then to have a conversation, I suppose, with the student on their own, with the farmer, and with the farmer on their own as well. And any issues or any problems that the student may be having can be addressed there. But if something is coming up in between, they can, of course, contact a placement officer at any stage, or if they contact with that member of staff. To reiterate, I suppose, what's been said here already this morning, I find that once that interview document is filled out properly, most of those little issues that might come up around hours or pay, once that's done properly in the interview document, there's really very few problems.
Perfect. And what happens if a student happens to miss a day or multiple days during placement due to illness or appointments?
Yeah, so look, this happens, life happens, and things come up. It is important that the students have to do a set amount of days, whether that be level 5 or level 6. So it's important that those days are completed. If a student is going to miss a day, they know that something's coming up, a wedding, or they have an appointment or something. On their interview document, they will have covered how they are to contact the farmer in relation to that. So are they to give a ring? Are they to give a text if they're sick? How are they to contact the farmer? So it's important on that interview document that they know that. If they're going to miss, a good few days because of illness, they will need to have, a doctor's cert. They will need to contact the placement officer to let them know what's happening. And then we can sort out with them afterwards, when can we catch up on these days, whether that be over the summer or whether that be at weekends, whatever it might be to catch up on the days. But it is essential that those days that are required are completed.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Anne-Marie. And we'll now have our Q&A session. But before that, just a reminder that if you do have any further questions or any questions come to mind in the next few days, you can ask your placement officer and they will do their very best to answer those questions. Now, we have a question there from Jack. Maeve, the all-important question, what is the minimum payment allowance for placement?
The minimum payment allowance is €208 per week, and that allowance is to cover the minimum hours, which is 35 hours. So that's 7 hours, 5 days a week, which mirrors the kind of college hours. So €208 is the minimum allowance.
Perfect. And we have a question there for Pat out in Cuffs Grange. Pat, do you have any advice on completing the placement diary?
Look, I suppose the main advice would be little and often, and I think, as Jack said it earlier, there lots of questions. When you're on your placement, ask lots of questions, and I suppose another little thing, just making sure that you're not just filling in the diary, like just writing down words. Make sure you know why you're doing it, like why the farmer's letting the cows out today, what you're vaccinating the heifers for, all those little things. Like, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
And Anne-Marie, we have a question there from Ballyhays. What do you look for when you're correcting a diary?
So look, you do want to see the same thing being repeated all the time, I suppose. One part of diaries, you're filling what's happening every week, okay? But you want to see the extra things in the times when they weighed heifers, maybe when they weighed stock, when they dose stock, information around that. You want to see that somebody isn't just copying week from week, and also we want to see that because we want to make sure that they're having a good experience as well, that they're getting to see different things. I think it's really important, those last few pages of the diary that maybe our level 5s haven't seen yet, on reflection on the work placement is really important. It's an important piece for us seeing what did they get out of the farm, what did they get out of the placement, and also that we know going forward that that farmer is putting the time into the students. To sit down with students and do the diaries, and those diaries definitely come back in a better shape than ones that maybe are left till the very end, are trying to think back and can't remember the detail and just end up writing in milked the cows, fed the calves, that type of thing.
Perfect. We have a question there from Michael. It's for both Katie and Jack. What are the key positives that you've gotten after completing your placement last year?
I suppose one of the positive things for me is the relationship that you do build up with like your host farmer as you go on in life, and if you're setting up your own farm and you wanted to source stock or you wanted advice just on anything on animal health, and even just advice on life, the host farmer is as good as a family member when it comes to that.
And Jack, we have a question there from Gertine. Did you spend all the time on farm, or was there an opportunity to see things outside of the farm?
Yeah, most of the time we were on farm, but maybe once a week, or maybe once or every 2 weeks we might go out to, if there was a discussion group on, or if there was, maybe go to the mart someday, or we got to go on out farms and looking at cattle. But that's the time when you nearly have the best crack, because you'll be off with the host farm, you'll be having the crack in the jeep going to it, and that's the best time, I think, really.
And Maeve, what happens if there happens to be an accident or something like that on placement?
If there's an accident on placement, the first thing you should do is report it to the college placement officer and get advice then from them as to what to do. I suppose really from the host farmer's point of view, there's a bit of detail required as to how the accident happened and why, but the placement officer will talk both parties through the procedure around should an accident occur.
Perfect. And another one for you, Maeve. Can you explain what the students need to do online with revenue before they start their placement? And what if they have a job with a farmer already and they're like on the books?
Well, I suppose again the college placement officers will talk the students through setting up their accounts for to declare their revenue. So I suppose each individual situation is different, because some students might have off farm work and others may not. So I suppose it's just to maybe get advice from the placement officer there as to what they need to have set up before they go out on farms.
Perfect. And Anne-Marie, we have a question down from Bello here. Can you choose your own placement, or does the placement officer do that for you?
No, so you can't choose your own placement, and look, for various reasons. I suppose we don't want students just working for neighbours or people that they know. We want placement to be a challenge for our students, where they go into a new environment, meet someone new, maybe someone that doesn't know them, that won't, I suppose, pigeonhole them into certain jobs. We want them to have a good experience, of wide skills. So no, the placement officer will look at the request form, they look at their air code and their address, and then they look at what kind of farm they're looking for, and then look from the host farmer list that we have several hundred farmers that are on that list that are approved, have health and safety done with us, and so that we will try to match them best based on their location, their experience with that farmer. So that's a really important part of our job, to try to find the best match. But no, the answer is no, you can't choose your own farm.
That's perfect. I think that's all we have time for today anyway. I would like to thank the panel that have joined me here today. And also a reminder about, if you do have any more questions, to ask your placement officer. So thanks to the panel, thanks to Anne-Marie Butler, who joined me earlier, Pat and John, who joined me via his farm, fellow students Jack and Katie, and to Maeve Freeney and Anne-Marie Doherty. I've really enjoyed hosting this webinar, and thanks to the production team. And so from all of us here from the Teagasc studio, thank you for watching, and I wish you all the best with placement, and do take care.